Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Is the nation saying throw the bums out? Well, we'll get a small indication of it as how strong that anti-incumbency mood is in America. Voters in several states are heading to the polls for their primaries.
And they're saying that the races are tight. John Waggy has this look at the key battles for Senate seats in Pennsylvania, Arkansas, and Kentucky.
Some of the hottest contests for Democrats are in Pennsylvania, where veteran Republican-turned-Democrat Senator Arlen Specter has a fierce challenge from Congressman Joe Sestak.
You don't vote for a change, you fight for a change.
I'm trying to keep my job to save thousands of jobs in Pennsylvania.
The two are running neck and neck, even though Specter is backed by President Obama. In western Pennsylvania's 12th House District, voters will decide who should fill the shoes of the late Congressman John Murtha, who was a close ally with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Republican businessman Tim Burns is trying to tie his Democratic opponent to Pelosi to win a seat that Democrats have held for decades.
Who has the power to stop her? Who can save America? You, the Pennsylvania voter. Vote May 18th, the day we fight back.
Democrat Mark Kritz is appealing to seniors who are worried about Social Security.
Why are seniors across western Pennsylvania voting Mark Kritz for Congress?
In Arkansas, Blanche Lincoln is another incumbent Democrat in trouble. She's being challenged from the left by Lieutenant Governor Bill Halter. The biggest Republican contest is in Kentucky, where Tea Party favorite Rand Paul is taking on Secretary of State Trey Grayson. Grayson is the choice of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. A victory by Paul, who is an eye doctor and the son of presidential candidate Ron Paul, would be a blow to the GOP old guard. John Waggy, CBN News.
Well, how much of an indicator is this going to be?
Much ado about nothing. I don't think that's going to tell us much of anything, although I think Arlen Specter, who was a year behind me in law school, he's been back and forth. You know, he came out really strong for Clarence Thomas nomination, and yet he's come out with these other things. Now he's switched parties because he didn't think he could win a Republican primary. I think the Democrats are going to dump him. He's had a full career, and I think it's over. Mm-hmm. But we'll have to see. I mean, it'll be an interesting day, and we'll give you the results tomorrow. Well, we'll have a full report on those elections that we said, but Wendy Griffith has the rest of our top stories in the CBN Newsroom. Wendy?
Pat, a controversial mosque has been approved near Ground Zero that has many people, especially family members of 9/11 victims, upset. They say it's not so much the mosque itself as the location. Here's an in-depth look at that controversy in New York.
8.5 years later, people still come here to pay their respects and remember the nearly 3,000 lives that were lost when radical Muslims slammed two hijacked American airliners into the World Trade Center towers. It was the worst terrorist attack ever on American soil. Today, Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf is pushing forward with a new mosque and community center near Ground Zero. He says it will help bridge the gap and bring healing between Muslims and non-Muslims.
By being in this location, we get the attention and are able to leverage the voice of the vast majority of Muslims who condemn terrorism.
The 13-story mosque is set to be built behind me in the old Burlington Coat Factory, just 2 blocks from Ground Zero. In fact, Friday Muslim prayers are already happening here. For many, it's a cruel reminder of Islamic extremism that took their loved ones' lives. For others, it's a way to move forward.
Just like all other groups. I mean, you have some who are not desirable, but most are fine. So I say go for it. What the heck? This is New York.
I really don't see a problem with it. I think that we have to move past, this is something that happened 10 years ago.
It's yesterday to me. It's yesterday to me. Just this past week was George's birthday.
Rosemary Kane sees it differently. She lost her son George, a 35-year-old New York firefighter, on 9/11.
It's not the mosque, it's the location, and it is very offensive. You know, New York City is a big place, and there's a lot of areas around there. They can go further uptown, they can go wherever they want to go. Why they chose that place, I don't know. And that's sacred ground.
It's almost like it's taunting us, like he's taunting us. It's a slap in the face. There are so many places where they can go.
Former New York firefighter Tim Brown, a 9/11 survivor, says he has two questions for the imam. Where's the $150 million coming from to build the mosque? And where was the Muslim outrage after 9/11?
We suspect that the money comes from places that he wants to hide.
It's coming from all people who believe in peace and who want to see a peaceful relationship between Muslims and non-Muslims.
Now, if that trail was to be investigated in the future, would there be any ties to any terrorist group?
Absolutely none.
As for Muslim outrage after 9/11, the imam says it was there, although Rosemary Kane says she never heard it.
It should have been loud and clear on September 12th. And what we have heard and what we did see right after the attacks were Muslims dancing in the streets of Brooklyn.
The imam admits mosques have often been used as places to preach jihad and hate against Americans, but says that will not be the case here.
This is an attempt, Wendy, to be part of the solution. We recognize that we're over a billion people worldwide. We recognize there's an element and a susceptibility for some of our young people to be drawn into these types of terrorist actions. We need to work together.
But Middle East expert Daniel Pipes says
the imam of this mosque, Faisal Abdul-Rauf, is someone with a very dubious record. He's an Islamist. He's someone who has sympathy with our enemies more than with us. In other words, he wants to apply Islamic law. Granted, he's not doing it via terrorism, but he's using his own methods of education and propagation in order to achieve the same goals.
Would you like to see Sharia law above the U.S. Constitution?
Sharia law cannot be above the law of the land in any country.
Pipes and others like Tim Brown also say it's a well-known Islamic tradition to build on top of an area that you've already conquered.
This is what we call a soft jihad. This is something where they're not doing it in our face. They're doing it very quietly, very stealthy. There's something called taqiyya in their culture, which says you're allowed to lie if it furthers the religion, the Muslim religion. He is engaging in taqiyya.
We are not at ground zero. We are outside the perimeter of ground zero.
If he could be right on top, he would be, but he can't be, so he's as close as he can be.
I will be praying at ground zero for the souls of my best friends, and I will hear Allahu Akbar echoing through the canyons into my ears. That is the same war cry that those terrorists yelled as they flew the planes into the towers.
The mosque is scheduled to open on September 11th, 2011. And Fox News reports that a second mosque will also be built near Ground Zero. Pat?
Isn't that interesting? You build at the place that you've conquered. Yeah. And I think it's an outrage. It's a desecration to the lives of those brave firefighters and police who died, and the lives of those in the various offices who died. 3,000 Americans died because of that terrible assault. And to put up a mosque, and as the firefighters said, they'll be hearing Allah Akbar echoing through the canyon. I mean, it's something absolutely obscene about it.
Well, you know, I think what was said is so true. There's lots of property in New York.
Of course there is.
And you can say what you want about wanting to build bridges of peace, but you don't do that by rubbing salt in an old wound.
That's exactly what it does. Well, Wendy?
Pat, the last U.S. missionary behind bars in Haiti has been set free. Laura Silsby was found guilty of arranging illegal travel for minors. She tried to take children out of Haiti without proper paperwork. But in a surprise decision, the judge says her time has already been served and he released her. Silsby and 9 other members of a missionary team were arrested shortly after the January earthquake. Charges against the rest of the team were also dropped and they were released. The government of Thailand has rejected a proposal for peace talks with the leaders of the red shirt protesters. At least 38 people have been killed in the anti-government protests. Thailand's leaders say they'll agree to a ceasefire if rioters return to their camps. Heather Sells has the story.
More intense fighting continued in different parts of Bangkok's main commercial district. Security forces are closing in on the red shirt protesters. this place that is famous for its shops and night market has turned into a war zone. Prime Minister Apisit Waichachiwa has defended the military's crackdown, saying it is aimed at an armed group that has infiltrated the Red Shirts. The Red Shirts are supporters of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, who was ousted in 2006 for corruption charges. They say that Prime Minister Abisit's appointment is illegitimate and that he should step down and call for new elections. The Prime Minister has proposed elections in November, but the Red Shirts want it now. On Sunday night, a Red Shirt leader requested the withdrawal of troops and for negotiations to resume with international mediation. The government rejected that proposal. Dr. Toole is the leader of the group called Civilian Volunteers Protecting the Homeland.
Other than Red Shirt, no one support them, and we want our normal life back.
Because of the volatile situation, tourists have been advised to stay away from Thailand. CBN News ran into this British couple who said this was their first and possibly last visit to Thailand.
The local people wouldn't help us walk through. They said, no, we're stopping here, but you've got to walk through with your arms up. And we just literally had to walk through a square with our arms up to get back to our hotel. Really scary.
The government is determined to enforce the rule of law towards the perpetrators, saving the country from what may lead into a civil war. Heather Sells, CBN News.
European Union nations are pushing for deep cuts in their budget deficits. They're trying to restore confidence in their ability to bring their national debts under control, strengthen their economies, and restore investors' faith in the euro. The EU's currency has collapsed in recent weeks, falling to its lowest level against the dollar in 4 years. Cutting the deficits would also cut the chance that other European countries would need a bailout. Pat?
Thanks, Wendy. You know, isn't it amazing that they've finally come to the realization that their budget deficits are causing the problem? Isn't that remarkable?
That it could be so simple as, let's cut back.
Yeah, let's exercise fiscal restraint. Oh, what a novel concept.
However, what happens in Europe usually comes to America.
Well, it's
Maybe
already here. The
thing.
problem with us, as we were talking yesterday, we're too big. There's nobody big enough to bail out the United States. We're not Greece. And what we're doing to ourselves here is going to be irreparable unless we change quickly. Wendy?
Pat, Britain's new coalition government is getting rid of a plan for a national ID card and a national identity register. The plan was proposed by the previous Labour Party administration. Conservatives and Liberal Democrats make up the new coalition. They're among the critics warning that Britain had been losing its civil liberties. The new administration also plans to reform the government's DNA database and impose tighter regulations on the country's extensive network of closed-circuit security cameras. Are they finally getting some common sense, Pat?
Well, Winnie, I hope so. I've been grieving on account of the loss of liberties from our British friends, and I could not understand what madness had taken the Labour Party to do that. I just couldn't understand it. It shades of 1984, and here we are. We're coming back, and so the first move of those conservatives was to cut out some of that surveillance. I mean, it was a dreadful thing they were doing. So hats off to Mr. Cameron and his team, all right?
Basic sensibilities. Right?
Basic sensibility, all right.
Well, coming up, he was the first American seaman captured by pirates in 200 years.
I was supposed to be exchanged for their leader. The leader came down, he got in the boat, and then they didn't exchange me, so that's one of the lessons I learned is never trust a pirate.
His secret weapon for survival when we come back.
Identity theft, one of the fastest growing crimes in America.
Even if you think you're doing everything right and hiding that social security number, you must still give it to your employer, your doctor, your accountant, insurance, school. The list goes on. And the identity thieves know who you must give it to. That's who they target.
And that's why you need LifeLock's new identity alert system, which goes beyond just new credit. It's like having a digital fingerprint. If a new application doesn't match you, we send an alert and help fix it for you. Join LifeLock and get alerts to important information, a $1 million service guarantee, plus a team of identity theft protection specialists. This identity theft protection is only $9.95 per month and comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Today's enrollments also include a free document shredder.
Call 1-800-920-3440 and mention today or visit lifelock.com.
Tomorrow on Skinny Wednesday, this man tipped the scales at 423 pounds. Today, he's down to 185, thanks to an offer he couldn't refuse. And then, Christians are fleeing Israel by the thousands.
You feel like somebody's choking you and there's no way out.
See what's behind this Holy Land exodus.
You remove the peacemakers, who's going to be the light of God? Who's going to bring the love of God to those people?
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Those pirates are getting away with not only extortion and kidnapping, but murder. I mean, they're a terrible group of people. And my thought is we ought to use some force against them and blow those little boats out of the water and teach them a lesson. We can't allow this to continue, but apparently the merchant marine vessels are afraid of offending them. So a year ago, Navy SEALs freed Captain Richard Phillips from the Somali pirates. The merchant marine had been kidnapped from the Mosque, Alabama, as it sailed off the coast of Africa. And Phillips says the military and his crew are the heroes of this high seas adventure. But prayer gave him the strength to endure. Ephraim Graham has his story.
Captain Richard Phillips is ready to return to the water.
Come June 1st, my sea bags will be packed and I'll be back on a ship somewhere sometime after June 1st.
Until then, the merchant marine is sharing the harrowing story that began to unfold April 8, 2009, aboard the Mosque, Alabama cargo ship. He remembers his first radio call that morning.
One pirate aboard, one pirate aboard. From then on, it was a 12 to 13-hour slippery slope of hide and seek, a cat and mouse game on the Mosque, Alabama, before we got into the lifeboat.
During that cat and mouse game, the Alabama's crew captured the pirate's leader. Phillips surrendered himself to the remaining three and boarded one of the ship's lifeboats.
I was supposed to be exchanged for their leader. The leader came down, he got in the boat, and then they didn't exchange me, so that's one of the lessons I learned, is never trust a pirate.
There would be more lessons to learn in 4 days aboard the 28-foot lifeboat, the biggest.
There is power to prayer, and it did help me. I didn't pray for escape. I prayed for strength and patience. I prayed for the strength. God will let me have the strength to continue and know when to escape, and the patience to wait for that time.
The captain thought that time had come 2 days later, sometime in the middle of the night. He could only guess at the time because the pirates had stolen his watch.
And all of a sudden, the lone pirate on the aft end of the boat gets up, walks out, and heeds the call of nature, and that gave me a chance to take 2 strides, get out the hatch, push it once, had to do it again, and he went into the water screaming.
Phillips then dove in and tried to swim to the nearby Navy ship, but the light of the full moon made it easy for pirates to spot him, catch him, and torture him another day.
With the rocking of the boat, in rhythm with the rocking, they just fire the gun from behind my head, and it was just click, click, click for about 3 hours.
Captain Richard Phillips was the first American seaman captured by pirates in 200 years. He was freed Easter Sunday 2009 after Navy SEALs shot and killed 3 of his captors.
I thought I was caught in a crossfire between 3 irate pirates, just mad, and they finally lost it and they were shooting at each other. That's what I thought was going on at the time. It wasn't until I was being hoisted up on the Bainbridge onto the deck of that U.S. Navy ship, that wonderful sight that I get to see, that I finally realized that, hey, I made it. I'm out of there. I'm alive.
He now hopes his story honors his fellow merchant marines and shines a light on the dangers at sea.
Today, as we speak, there are over 15 ships and close to 200 sailors, fellow men and women of the International Merchant Marine, who are kept at gunpoint as hostage, waiting to be freed.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Thank you.
Unbelievable.
You know, I think we ought to arm those ships.
Are they not armed with
No,
anything,
they're not
knowing
armed.
these pirates are out there?
Well, they're afraid that if they arm them, then they'll be sunk with warfare, and they want to maintain a status of neutrality. There's some arms on some of them, but I don't think many of them. But I think they should have contingents of servicemen. Those pirates are not really heavily armed. They just have these little dinghies out there.
I bet they wouldn't clamber up over the side so quickly if they thought they could
get
be.
shot every time they do it. I mean, it's just amazing what we've allowed, and they're just a bunch of kids, what we've allowed them to do. And they take these big vessels and hold them up for millions of dollars worth of ransom. It's outrageous. It's outrageous for a great nation like the United States and Britain and the Western allies to allow a few ragtag pirates to destroy our shipping. It makes no sense at all.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like we ought to go get them. All right.
Well, up next, inside the life of Pat Robertson, as told by his latest biographer.
Everybody says he listens to Dee Dee more than anybody else.
I do listen to them, but you know, Dee Dee and I pray together. That's one of the things. When we have really serious issues, we get together and pray.
A look at the new book on Pat's life and legacy after this.
Hi there, neighbor. Pat Boone here from my good friends at Swiss America, the company that makes retirement dreams come true with gold. A lot of folks are shifting a portion of their retirement funds into a new precious metals IRA with Swiss America. And since 2004, these IRAs are up in value over 150%. I've been a very satisfied client of Swiss America for many years now because they believe in honesty, fair prices, and superior service. It's time to put your financial future on a gold standard right now. I own gold because it's a hedge of protection for my family. Even my grandkids can see that our paper money is becoming less valuable every day. So call or visit Swiss America now. Ask for the Pat Boone free DVD and gold IRA kit. Get the best education you can on gold, the best asset to own during these uncertain times. Call or visit online now.
CBN TV on CBN.com. All the video you love in one easy-to-use location.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we showed you the first part of Lee Webb's interview about the new book called Pat Robertson, His Life and Legacy. And today we have the second part, beginning with a look at what biographer David Harrell found most intriguing about Pat.
The thing about Pat that has made him so interesting and so frustrating to try to write a book about is that he's into so many different things.
God made me an entrepreneur. I've just been able to create institutions with relative ease, and that's his doing, you know. And I've said I give him the credit. I take all if the bad stuff, I take the blame, give him the credit for the good stuff.
Pat, if it's the hallmark of any good businessman is his ability to get up the next morning after a business deal hasn't gone well and keep on charging. Has that served you well over the years?
Well, I've had some desperate disappointments, and it hadn't been easy. You know, the Apostle Paul said, through much pressure we enter into the kingdom of God. And the word pressure, I love that Greek word thalipsis, which is pressure. It's translated tribulations, but there's pressures. And I've had unbelievable pressures. You know, I've got to meet a payroll. Right now we have over 1,000 people. I've got to pay their salaries. I mean, I don't have to, but there's got to be enough money to do it. Then I've got a university. They've got another 500-600 people. So that's, you know, and then overseas we've got probably altogether maybe 3,000 employees. Got to have the money for them. Got to pay the electric bill. Got to do all the things you have to do every day.
Pat, what would you say is the goal of your life?
Well, I think the real thing is to please Jesus. This is what it's all about, is to know him and to please him. And that really, we have an audience of one. That's the way I've always looked at things. So it makes life a lot easier.
When you come into the studio each day, what is the one thing that you want the viewer to know about God that they didn't know before?
Well, I think I want them to see His glory and understand Him. That's what I'm trying to do.
It's a powerful driving force. You just have to be careful that you're hearing correctly.
That's right. I'm asking God for direction. I'm giving my burdens to Him. I'm explaining the problems and asking for His advice. And it's His deal. It's His ministry. It belongs to Him. So I lay the burdens on Him. It makes it a lot easier. My secret is every day I spend time with the Lord. Every day.
I mean, you have good relations with your children, who are wonderful, by the way.
They're very precious, and I'm proud of them. But and they've, not only them, but their great-grandchildren. I've got 14 grandchildren. They all know the Lord. They're all very sweet, and they've all been brought up quite well. So I must have done something right as a father.
It's interesting. You talk about the time you spend with the Lord. It seems like I've heard each of your 4 children say that it's your prayer life that has inspired them the most.
Everybody says he listens to Dee Dee more than anybody else.
I do listen to them, but you know, Dee Dee and I pray together. That's one of the wonderful things. When we have really serious issues, we get together and pray, and I ask God to speak to her and to speak to me, and we compare what God is saying. And one time there was an issue where I said, Lord, what should we do? And the Lord said, listen to your wife. And that was, I said, dear, what do you want to do? And so we did what she said.
As people talk to me about working here, and that they marvel at your longevity in the ministry, and the question inevitably comes up about retirement, and the response I always give is, I don't believe that retirement is in Pat Robertson's vocabulary. Am I right?
Well, not so far. You know, Lee, I've kind of wanted to kind of rack it up. I had some health issues, and they were giving me medicine that was just absolutely tiring me out. I was exhausted all the time, and I was just thinking that as soon as I can hang it up and go sit in a rocking chair, the better off it'll be. But after they fixed my heart, and for better or for worse, I've come back stronger than ever. So
that's the part of your life that I find the most amazing. I'm quite a bit younger than you are. I have the same condition, and when I saw you come in here after a few months ago, after that recent surgery that you had, I stood there in amazement. But I came away with the assumption that you really had to be here in order to recover. Am I right about that?
Well, it sort of is. Yes. This is my life, and I love it. And but I love the Lord, and I don't mind going home to be with Him when the time comes. So I'm in no hurry to leave, and Paul said I'm in a strait betwixt two. You know, whether to depart and be with the Lord, which is far better, or to remain in the flesh, which is needful for you. So,
Pat, what would you like your legacy to be?
I think what they said about David, he served the Lord in his generation. I've lived a very good life. I can't complain. God has really blessed me in every way known to man. A beautiful family, wonderful grandchildren, a lovely situation, marvelous people working with me. I mean, it's just been a good thing.
Well, Pat, it's a great story. And
let me show this on the camera. It's called, well, it's an easy title, Pat Robertson. And there's a picture of this smiling guy on the front cover. This is a monstrous book. How many pages are in this thing?
It's about 500 pages. It's about 125 pages of footnotes.
You've worked for a couple of years. This is indefatigable, so congratulations. And I hope it is successful with the general public.
Well, David Harrell has done an amazing thing just in chronicling all of this the way that he has. I mean, it is, I'm reading it and I'm thinking, I had college textbooks that weren't this big.
Have you read it?
Yes, yes. I think it's marvelous. What do you think? Because I think, well, he talks about how daunting it is to try to cover everything that someone who's done as much as you have is. It's also very daunting to have someone else do that, to feel like, to wonder whether they've actually captured your heart about things, your thoughts about things. What do you think?
Well, Dee Dee says it's really not you, but at the same time, it is a chronicle of a lot of things. But unfortunately, over the years, I have been beat up by enemies. And I guess if you're effective for the Lord, you have enemies. And
you can expect it.
If you compress what they've said into a few pages, it overwhelms you. You know, you stretch it out over 30, 40 years. It's one thing, but to compress it is something else.
Well, it's also like having to revisit some of those things that you're
Painful.
happy to move on from. I'm sure.
Painful.
Yeah.
I mean, really, people have done and said some very hurtful things, and you live through it and get over it. But also, there's some good stuff. I mean,
there's lots of there's more good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think what Lee said is so true. And you have this quality that you come back the next day, no matter what has been said, no matter what has been done, and you move forward. And it's a wonderful chronicle of how
George
God
Allen's
has used you.
Former governor of Virginia and former senator, he said, I don't understand it. They just beat the daylights out of you, and you're always smiling and happy. I don't understand how you do it. Well, you roll it over on the Lord. So if you want to know how to have a victorious life, this book will tell you.
Mm-hmm. It chronicles so many things, and I think you'll find it fascinating. David Harrell's biography is called Pat Robertson, A Life and Legacy, and this is available wherever books are sold. If you missed part 1 of Lee Webb's interview with Pat and David Harrell, you can watch that online. Just log on to CBN.com.
Well, still ahead, we've got your email questions. Morgan writes, my neighbor said she sees spirits, including a woman that she identifies as my mother who died when I was 12. Is it possible that she's really seeing the spirit of my mother? Well, we'll answer that question and more when we come back.
And with us today, Emmy Award-winning narrator Stephen Johnston with his brand new DVD Bible.
That's right. And brand new technology has put the entire King James Bible on just one DVD. Instead of $29.95 for 2 discs, we're passing the savings on to you, and all you'll pay is just $19.95. Easy to see large text is displayed on your TV while I read every word to you.
That whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
Well, this would be great for someone like my mother who's beginning to lose her vision.
It's easy. With the touch of your remote, you can go to chapter and book.
Chapter 4.
I understand there's a bonus section.
That's right. There's a tour of the Holy Land gallery of photos with all its rich history.
Well, I've never seen anything like this.
We sold over 1 million of the 2-disc DVD Bibles for just $29.95. But this new single DVD Bible with the Holy Land photo tour is yours for just $19.95. You save $10.
When you order now, you get the Children's Bible Favorites, a $9.95 value, free.
David knew he could stop Goliath with his slingshot.
The DVD Bible makes a great gift.
You're right. And because the DVD Bible makes such a perfect gift, when you call in the next 20 minutes, we'll send you a second DVD Bible to share with a loved one absolutely free. You get 2 complete DVD Bibles, a $40 value for just $19.95.
Order your DVD Bible right now.
And God bless you. I know this will change your life.
To order your complete King James Version of the Bible on one DVD with both the Old and New Testament, and get a second King James Bible free, both with your 2 free children's bonus CDs, all for only $19.95 plus processing, call 1-800-925-4334. That's 1-800-925-4334. Or go to BiblesOnDVD.com. It makes a great gift for friends, family, Bible study, Sunday school, or church groups. Order now.
Welcome to Washington for this CBN Newsbreak. For the first time, President Obama is meeting with Jewish Democratic lawmakers today. The president plans to discuss U.S. relations with Israel. The meeting comes after U.S. envoy George Mitchell recently facilitated resuming peace talks between Israel and Palestinians. President Obama says he supports the Jewish state, but is also for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. Evangelist Billy Graham may preach at a stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's the word from his daughter, Ruth. She says the 91-year-old evangelist is preparing a sermon and that he's building up the strength he'll need to preach. She says the preparations could take until next year, but her father is confident he'll be able to do it. He says God gave him a timeline, and he's sure he'll still be here. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Pat and Terry will be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.
What makes the miracles of Jesus even more miraculous? Standing where they happened, in Israel. Come visit Capernaum, where Jesus restored a paralytic's helpless legs. Sail the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus walked on the water. Stroll through the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus healed a servant's ear. To learn more about standing where it all happened, in Israel, visit www.goisrael.com. Come visit Israel.
Hi, I'm Patrick Duffy. Are you having trouble hearing? Here's an easy way to find out if it's something as simple as earwax. Call Miracle Ear for a free Better Hearing Kit or to schedule your free hearing and video otoscope test.
Many people come into Miracle Ear and learn that their hearing loss is being caused by nothing more serious than earwax buildup.
The point is to find out. Schedule your free hearing test today. Miracle Ear has been helping people hear better for more than 60 years. Their open-fit products are lightweight and nearly invisible. And now Miracle Ear confidently backs each one with a 3-year warranty and a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. So don't hesitate. Call now.
Call 1-888-320-1074 to schedule your free hearing test or for free information. Through May 31st, get excellent trade-in value when you buy any new Miracle Ear hearing aid. Call 1-888-320-1074.
Tomorrow on Skinny Wednesday, this man tipped the scales at 423 pounds. Today, he's down to 185, thanks to an offer he couldn't refuse. And then, Christians are fleeing Israel by the thousands.
You feel like somebody's choking you and there's no way out.
See what's behind this Holy Land exodus.
You remove the peacemakers, who's going to be the light of God? Who's going to bring the love of God to those people?
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Well, we've got time for some of your email today. And Pat, this first one is from Letitia, who says, my kids are in elementary school and love to play with the kids next door. The neighbor kids are ignored by their parents, are poorly behaved, and I don't want my kids to pick up their bad habits. Do I expose my kids to this or protect them from it? Wow, next door, that's hard.
You've got to work that one out yourself. I can't tell you because I don't live next to your neighbors. But you know, bad company brings about bad morals, and if those kids are doing what you say they're doing, then your children, at being impressionable, pick up those habits. And you don't want to tell them, well, you're special and they're not, and then you get them in a different frame. So I think what you've got to do is find a substitute. Well, we'd love you to go next door to play, but we're going to the park, or we're going to the zoo, or we're doing this and the other.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, another thing you could do is start a little kids' summer Bible study or something.
Well, you do something like that, yeah.
Okay, this is from, let's see, Morgan, I believe, who says, my neighbor's had a near-death experience. Now she says she sees spirits, including a woman that she identifies as my mother, who died when I was 12. I don't believe that it could be my mother, so I said, tell it to go away. Is it possible that she's really seeing the spirit of my mother, or is it something else?
The Bible talks about familiar spirits, and I never fully understood what a familiar spirit is, but it has to do with your family. I mean, as I understand, it's people close to you, familiar spirits. And this is a demonic spirit masquerading as your mother. Mm-hmm. So you ought
telling it to go away is the right thing.
You better believe it, in the name of Jesus.
Yeah. This is Naomi, who says, I am struggling with 2 of my sister-in-laws. One is very sweet, but is often caught in white lies. The other one pretends to be nice, but is a drama queen, making sarcastic and hurtful remarks to everyone, including my children. I don't want my children to be hurt, but I also don't want to drop out of the family. How can I deal with this situation?
Naomi, I don't know what your brothers are, but these are your brothers' wives. Mm-hmm. It is really hard to criticize a wife to a husband, but at the same time, you need great wisdom to talk to your brother and say, you know, I really love you and I love your wife, but I was hurt very badly when she said that I, whatever it was. And is there some way that we can get together? I mean, if you come in an attitude of humility, but your brother's the one to talk to because he's the member of your family and he brought that woman into your family. So the one that tells little white lies, I mean, hey, get used to it and just don't pay any attention to what she says.
That's why in 1 Corinthians 13 they say love is not easily offended, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, but it's hard when you're part of the family. And, but your brother's probably sensing the same thing, and he'd like to fix it. So, I mean, pray together with him.
This is Joel, who says, a while ago, one of your guests shared a vision that the Lord is bringing revival through the young people of our nation. Our youth group wants to be a part of that. Are there steps we can take to get revival going, or do we just sit and wait on God?
Well, it's kind of like you said, to get it going. I mean, the revival comes when you are sold out to God. So you ought to set up prayer meetings where the young people can pray and cry out to God and get right with God. If there's secret sins, they'll confess them, and that they begin to pour themselves out to the Lord. And you will have revival where you are, whether it's worldwide and something else, but you'll have it in your church if everybody is seeking God. That's what revival is.
Okay, this is Annie, who says, I'm a 24-year-old mom and a single parent, and I've been praying and believing for a husband for a long time. My son is 3, and I feel bad that he doesn't have a father to be there for him. How do I believe God for a husband? Is it too much to ask the Lord every day, or does that seem like I'm being a pest?
No, the Lord doesn't mind. Look at Hannah. She cried out to God, and she got on her face and cried to the Lord. The high priest thought she was drunk because she was interceding and just begging God that she could have a child, that she could be pregnant. I think you could ask the Lord, but at the same time, you don't necessarily help him. But I really do believe that you need to go where Christian men are. You know, people come to, youth groups and church and young adults meetings and things like that. Now, and in addition to make yourself attractive, I don't know what you look like or what you act like, but,
Yeah. I have 2 children who just married. Both of them met their spouses in church.
Well, I think that's the where to go. You want a Christian person, and there they are. And there are men who come to church who would love to have a life companion who loves God and who shares their values, and that's where you find them. All right.
Okay, this is Emily, who says, I have a friend who needs the Lord but is trying to find meaning in everything else. She comes from a very controlling family, so she hates anyone trying to change her. How can I help her without making her feel pressured to become a Christian, but instead eager to have a relationship with Jesus?
Tell her how much you love Jesus. Every day you see her, say, let me tell you what Jesus did for me, and isn't he wonderful? And I'm so much in love with Jesus. Don't try to change her. Talk about the goal. The goal is Jesus. It's not changing her. It's letting her know Jesus.
Yeah.
And then sooner or later you say, I want you to meet my friend. Yeah. That's it. You're not trying to change her. I'd like you to meet my friend.
If you live the right way, she may want to just meet your friend.
Sure, but that's it. I want to introduce you to my friend. Right.
Okay, this is Mary, who says, a member of our family just joined a church that worships only on Saturdays instead of Sundays. This is causing problems with the rest of the family. Why did the Christian church change to worshiping from Saturday to Sunday, and when did that happen?
Well, the first day of the week is the day of the resurrection. On the first day of the week, they came to the tomb, and he was not in the tomb. The day before was the Saturday, which is the Sabbath. The Jews took the Sabbath as Saturday, which is the seventh day. The Christians took Sunday as the day of worship because it represents the day of the resurrection. It's just that simple. That's when it happened, and it was along the way. So when did they change? Well, when they stopped being Jews and became Christians, and little by little they said, well, let's worship the day of the resurrection.
There are some Christian organizations or groups or denominations that worship on Saturday still.
Well, the Seventh-day Adventists, that's what it's all about. That's in their church name, Seventh-day Adventists.
I think there's some Seventh-day Baptists too, aren't there?
Yeah, there are others who it's just a type of legalism. We're not supposed to worship any day. All days are given to the Lord. But I think the thing that I believe that you should try to do is to have a day of rest, have a day of when you set aside to the Lord, and if it's Sunday, fine. If it's Saturday, fine. But find a day when you worship the Lord.
Amen.
Okay.
Well, we thank you for your email questions. We always welcome them. You know you can send them to us through the internet, cbn.com. Coming up later, a hard-working family who could not get ahead.
We spent that entire year working real hard, never missed a day of work, and I think I saved $3,000. And that's just exactly what our tax bill was. We just sat there going, "You're kidding."
See how this husband and wife went from an annual income of $20,000 to more than $200,000.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Y todo era bueno. Nos creó para que le conociéramos.
కుటుంబంగా కలిసిమెలిసి ఉండాలని ఆయన మనల్ని సృజించాడు.
Obwohl jede Nation, jeden Volksstamm und jeden Menschen liebte,
nos apartamos de su amor. Nuestro pecado nos separó de él.
Но Он не забыл нас. Иисус Христос оставил небеса, чтобы жить с нами.
Il a été cloué sur une croix et il est mort pour nos péchés.
Ananging Gusti sampun wungu saking sedanipun lan gesang ing sak menika.
耶穌快將再來，我哋期待呢一日。
But until then, we will share God's love in English.
En español.
Auf Deutsch.
Français.
So every person might come to know our Savior, Jesus Christ the Lord.
Das ist unsere Mission.
Esa es nuestra pasión.
В этом наше будущее.
Well, it was feast or famine for Greg and Marilyn Bolt during their first 15 years in business. Then the Bolts tried a new strategy that took their company from $20,000 a year. It doesn't sound like much of a company, does it? $20,000 a year to $200,000, tenfold.
Greg and Marilyn Bolt combined their family life with their work as owners of Backroads Inn and Cabins in the Black Hills of South Dakota. However, the early years of their marriage involved a whole lot of work and very little play. Greg and Marilyn owned a construction and roofing company. No matter how much they worked, it never seemed to be enough.
I believed in Greg that he would do all he could to provide for us, but I just didn't think we would have a lot.
You know, we often worked 6 days a week. We spent that entire year working real hard, never missed a day of work, and I think I saved $3,000. And that's just exactly what our tax bill was. We just sat there going, "You're kidding." And then we were back to square one again. It was always kind of a survival mode kind of thing.
After 14 years of financial struggle, Greg and Marilyn decided to make a change.
We began to think, what are we doing with our life that makes a difference, that's eternal?
The Bolts went from sporadic givers to faithful tithers. No matter what their income, they committed the first 10% to God.
As we learned to tithe, we realized that God started to bless our businesses, and we just had more and more and more work.
I began to see how you can't outgive God. You give Him your days and your time and your finances, and He gives you more of the desires of your heart.
Their $20,000 a year income turned into over $200,000. As their business increased, their giving increased. Greg and Marilyn became CBN partners.
We were watching the show, and I looked at Marilyn and I says, you know, of the things that we give to, this is something we should be doing. This is a tremendous ministry that touches people all over the world.
The Bolt family no longer scrapes by from one season to the next. They say that's because they've committed their business and finances to God.
What we have, we own, and God's given it to us. You know, God's given us opportunities one after another.
The Bible teaches us to do what is placed before you with an honest heart and to work hard. But we can't leave out the part that God requires of us to give back to Him too.
When we do the things that God's Word says, we'll see God's blessing. I think that is a bigger picture than just our finances. It's our whole way of life becomes what God wants.
Our whole way of life becomes what God wants. You know, God has promised. God will not be a liar. He will not lie. And the Lord said, prove me. Test me with your tithes and offerings if I want to open the windows of heaven and pour you out such a blessing you can't contain it. Now, that's what he said. That's what he promises. And so we encourage you to take him at his word, believe him, and prove him, and watch what happens. And folks, I'd like you to join the 700 Club. It's easy. It's 65 cents a day. It's $20 a month. Or you could do a lot more. And for those who do join, I have something that will, I believe, will bless you. It's called The Secret Kingdom. It's DVD. This is volume 1. The timeless laws of God's kingdom are at work in the world today. And we'll give this to you on DVD, and you can play it and watch it over and over and over again. Terry.
It's from your best-selling book by the same title. And boy, the principles in there are principles that really will give you strong guidelines for life. Well, here's somebody who's already listened to that Volume 1 DVD. This is Joan. She lives in West Seneca, New York, who says, I truly enjoyed The Secret Kingdom. Pat Robertson put a lot of things in perspective. I'll watch it over and over again, and I can't wait until the next volume. So,
well,
it's around the corner.
It's been finished and it's on the way. Next week we'll tell you how to get it. All right.
Well, up next, their mission to get history to repeat itself. Dear friends Squire Rushnell and Louise Duarte talk about bringing revival to Martha's Vineyard the second time around.
Okay.
While Mary feeds her 2 young daughters, she also helps feed needy families around the world. While Bob hands a drink out to a coworker, he helps give water to villages with new wells. And while Carl builds a house for his son's new puppy, he helps rebuild homes in disaster areas.
These people all have something in common. They're CBN partners who have joined Pledge Express. I hope you'll consider joining Pledge Express too. It's a way to simplify your own life while speeding help to others, all at the same time. There are no checks to remember or stamps to buy, and your gift goes to work faster, helping those who need it most. So join us and change the world for someone today.
Well, 150 years ago, more than 15,000 people gathered together during summer weekends for revival camp meetings on Martha's Vineyard. This June, history is set to repeat itself. And here to tell us more, please welcome to the 700 Club, the authors of Couples Who Pray, Squire Rushnell and Louise Duarte. This is like old home week.
I know, Miss Terry.
Yes, it is. Great to have you here. Hey, tell me about what happened on the vineyard 150 years ago.
Great revival back in, it was the 1850s and 60s, actually. Yeah. People would come from all over. It was the largest camp meeting in the world, some people said. Really? 15 to 20,000 people would come there on a weekend and hear the gospel being preached. Well, over the years, you know, it's become really spiritually dead, the island. Matter of fact, it is one of the most liberal places in the country right now.
It's the bluest corner of the bluest state.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, Scott Brown won Massachusetts. And surprised everybody. But Martha's Vineyard, he lost by 2/3.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this little church of 60 people began praying that we could reignite that fire that was once on that island, where they built this iron tabernacle that seats about 1,500 people surrounded by these gingerbread cottages, all different colors. But it's just a photo op nowadays.
But the root is still there.
The root is still there.
Yes.
And as our little congregation, 60 of their carpenters and fishermen started to pray and humble themselves and really seek God's divine alignment and all of this, God did indeed start to align us. He got us together with Dr. Charles Stanley, who is an amazing,
and a wonderful Bible teacher. Yeah. He really breaks open the Word. So how you shared with Dr. Stanley? You were at his church? Or?
We actually, because he had watched Living the Life, the show we did together.
A wise man.
Yes, a very wise man. And they had booked Squire and I for a Christmas party at the In Touch Ministries, because we did our inspiration and comedy there. And we just happened to tell him about our little island and how, 150 years ago, there was a great revival. Well, we get a call. And he said, I want to preach at that tabernacle. He said, I feel God is going to revive that place again.
Wow.
And so what we did is, Dr. Stanley is the keynote speaker. We have the most amazing people.
Last year we did it for 3 days.
Yeah.
And it was a great turnout.
So
this year it's
Dr.
5
Stanley's
days.
First, that was he called and you opened the
People came from all over the country. They came. Right. They swarmed the island. The island didn't know what hit them with all these Christians coming off the ferry. They didn't know what to think. People were saved. It was like the old camp meetings. People would come to know the Lord, and then we'd have a little tent to the side, and we'd give them information. These are our little fishermen and our carpenters there. So Dr. Stanley, we said, Dr. Stanley, will you come back next year? And he said, well, I've been praying about it. And he said, I don't believe I should preach for 3 days. I believe I should preach for 5 days, and I'm going to stay there until the Lord tells me to leave, because I believe there's going to be a revival there. Yeah. Well,
so we have
thousands.
Ricky Skaggs. Yeah. We have Mandisa from American Idol. We have David Barton.
The great historian.
We have Mara Getz. We have Avalon. I mean, it's 5 days.
Wow.
And you know something? People think that that's because it's a playground for presidents and celebrities that it's untouchable, but it is affordable at this time of year. Yeah. And there are great bargains. And if people go to cbn.org, you get linked to In Touch or intouch.org, Martha's Vineyard, and you can find out all about it.
So give me the dates.
June 4th through 8th.
Yeah.
And yes, and it is very affordable, and it is a beautiful time of year. And if people can't come, what I would ask is if they would just pray. They would pray. God is going to do miracles.
We need to bring back prayer in America. We need to reclaim America.
There's a lot of talk right now about revival and about people who are passionate to see God just move.
And in the Northeast, Terry, do you know that all the revivals really started in the Northeast?
Yeah. But today, 53% of the unchurched population of America is in the Northeast. Mm-hmm. That is where people came from Europe to find religious freedom. That's where all of the revival started. But today it is spiritually dormant. We got to get behind this.
You're both going to be keynote speakers there as well.
Yes, we are. And
what are you going to talk about?
We are talking about prayer matters. Mm-hmm. We are going to, in music, inspiration, and comedy. Who's going to do the comedy? We know who. We are going to talk about how prayer matters to every one of us.
See, the problem with the church sometimes, and this is a Barna report that we just read, that a lot of times the church doesn't think prayer is as important.
Yeah.
It's really the most important. It's the undergirder of everything that matters. It's what moves mountains.
That's what Jesus did nothing without praying first. Yeah. And when we look at these 60 people on this island who prayed, to see thousands now coming to Martha's Vineyard to experience the amazing, amazing power of God's hand on us
this
now.
This little church, Faith MV, started ripping out the pages of the telephone book, handing them out to people, asking them to pray over the pages. Awesome. And then at the big church in Atlanta, they ripped apart the telephone book and handed them out, and people are praying over Martha's Vineyard names.
Well, not everybody is going to be able to be there, but let me give you the information. It's Martha's Vineyard Inspiration Weekend, June 4th through the 8th. If you'd like more information, as Squire said, all you have to do is go to cbn.com. If you can't be there, let's all commit to pray for this time as God does something wonderful on Martha's Vineyard. God bless you guys for what you're doing. Pat, over to you.
Passion, that's what they've got. Well, we leave you with these words from Acts. Repent and turn to God so that your sins may be wiped out and the times of refreshing may come from the Lord.
I know how it feels to be alone. To be hungry.
To be afraid.
I haven't had a birthday party.
My own room.
Or a family to call mine. I'm an orphan.
An orphan.
An orphan. And there are 100 million more like me in the world today.
Together, you and I can make a tremendous difference to someone today. We can change the lives of orphans. I'm asking you to get involved. Give to Orphans Promise. From Asia to Africa, from Latin America to Europe, you'll be providing housing, food, education, job training, and hope to children who are alone and at risk. Jesus said, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me." Please give to Orphans Promise and love a child today.